Oh, Nancy, I feel your pain on the conflicting information that's out there. Yeah, it is. This is a really this is a real tough one. This is a real tough one. So, all right. I'm awake. I'm ready to do this. All right. We've got a lot to cover here. It is a complex setup that is only going to last a few hours as we head into tonight, but there's still an opportunity to get a thumping of snow out of that. Now, the problem is placement, and that's been the problem really with the system since day one, although for the most part, it aimed initially when it first appeared on the models, which was a week and 2 days ago, something like that. It's the first time I recall seeing it. It was aiming right into I-64. Then it slowly started to shift away from us and aimed a little more toward Indiana and then Indianapolis into Ohio. And it hovered in that general spot for a few days. Then we got into this weekend. And of course, now that the systems were getting sampled, they started to adjust. And the adjustment shifted the snow band down to the Ohio River, which led to the issuance of the winter weather advisory from the Weather Service at that point. Once it got to that area, lighting up across central areas of just about everyone here in Wave Country. And then the trend since I have even been here at the station continues to move it to the south. Now, at some point, the systems do indeed settle. All right, it's not gonna go all the way to Miami. Okay, it's got a settling point to it, and it's close to that now. And that's where I'm finding tune for the midday show is that settling point. I got enough now to talk to you guys, and I'll share with you some of the things I'll still be looking for in the next hour as more data is rolling in. But you get the idea overall, hopefully, from the maps I'm about to show you and the overall timing, which I know is going to be your biggest question, and impact. We'll cover that as well in just a few. Real quick, let's knock out the snowboard, right? I see our comments and questions, by the way. Give me a moment, as always, to stop me and get through a lot of the setup first. And if I haven't answered anything, I will say it again, and I'll try to catch it when I come back around. Okay, so, and you can do that on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. If you're watching from streaming, you're not able to see the comments that have been flying up already. You'll have to go there. And still, I'll try to go back sometimes I'm able to and look back at some of the questions I can answer. On the board, 2 items. The one tonight is one out. I did move it up to a 3. Even though the placement of this is looking to be a rather smaller area of the region than it would look like earlier, I still think it's a decent impact event as far as travel can be when it comes to slushy roads. And you get a few inches of snow. I mean, it's, even if it's slushy, it's still slick. It makes it difficult to get around. So I did raise that scale up, and I'll show you the zone that we're looking at for that in a second. There's another wave toward the end of the period here as we get into Friday into Saturday that has a chance to allow us to get a rain to snow type scenario that could develop. But that one, speed is against its own self on that one. So that one's going to take a bit of time too to resolve. All right. We good? Well, let me at least bring out some of the nicer things here. We got sunshine at the moment. Now, that is going to do 2 things. One, it's going to allow the thermometers into southern Indiana and central Kentucky, there's still clouds to the east, to get up there closer to 50 or so this afternoon. The sun rays themselves hitting the roadways will also increase the pavement temperatures, especially blacktops and asphalt. That will warm up, which will be a player on road conditions for later if we go over to snow. So the sun coming out will help really improve the scenario for any wintry weather that we're trying to get involved roughly in this area. Meanwhile, clouds are holding on here, which I don't know how long they will hold on there. Therefore, your road conditions there are a little more questionable, depending on how much of the sun can actually get to shine on the roads before another batch of clouds is moving in, because those clouds are moving in from the southwest and will soon fill in from this area and head eastbound to cover all of us later on in the afternoon hours. But in between all of that will indeed, as you just saw there, be the ability to get some sun rays right there in the middle, which would include Louisville. All right, so for snow lovers and you want snowfall and you want it to stick, that is not what you want to see. That will work against you. Okay, so let's get into where we are on the cloud cover. You can see that morning batch of clouds, there he goes off to the east. A lot of this is the shadow too from the ground, from the clouds shining on the ground, which has been pretty cool to watch. Here's the increase in clouds across the southern areas trying to build back in. You see the sun is still out though for areas around Louisville and Indiana. So we really have a decent few hours. A lot of you be like, wait a minute, there's no way it's going to snow tonight. There's no way. It's sunny outside. It's almost 50. It's no way. And in many cases, you would be right. It is difficult to get a 50-degree day to go to snow. As I mentioned before, you can get there by having the darkest of night, step one, to an intense rainfall rate with marginally cold air above you that, and even colder air above that, they can allow for dynamic cooling as you get the heavier rates and you cool the ground. You cool the air. You don't really cool the ground, to be honest. You just cool the air down to the point where the snowflake can get down to the lowest 1,000 feet, and then boom, there you go. Snow begins. The first flakes hit, they melt on contact. But that process, if it's heavy snow, especially 1 to 2 inches an hour, which is what some of the rates may end up being here, 1 to 2 inches of snow per hour, eventually the snowflakes just don't have time to melt. They don't have time. So they just start sticking to each other. And once that happens, they themselves just create the environment of a snow landscape that cools the air down to where the snow melting process has started to slow dramatically, if not stop. And therefore, you get an accumulating snowfall. As soon as the snow is over, then the warm ground will start to warm in from the south or underneath it, basically. And you can tell I do a lot of directions from weather maps. It warms underneath and begins to melt the snowfall away nearly just about a few hours after that, if not earlier. And then it becomes a distant memory. Even at several inches of snow will become a distant memory by midday or so tomorrow with warmer weather. So this is the kind of snow, if you don't want to deal with it for days and days, you don't mind it falling, but you just want it out of your hair in about 12 hours. This is the kind of snow we're talking about. Snow lovers really want to stick around longer than this, but that's the kind of setup we got for a wet snow. Does that all make sense? Type 24 if you understand all that. So understand everyone is there on how the process works. And keep in mind, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for timing of the speed at night. I'm looking at the track, and I'm looking at rates. That's the key on this for us as meteorologists. We're about out of the realm, by the way, of looking at models. I'll show you some today, but eventually we got to throw those babies to the side and then got to start just doing typical meteorology here, what we call nowcasting, and just taking the observations we're seeing and matching it up with how the trends are. There are some high-res models that do really well in a 3-hour out event. But overall, it's really just nowcasting and seeing how things are lining up and just trying to get the word out, if anything's off track, as much as we possibly can. But hopefully nothing will be too far off track. Hopefully. That's your wish in these scenarios. But they always have the same kind of frustration, especially for meteorologists. It is frustrating. Okay, 1 second. I got the spammer. Travis, I hope I don't block you by accident. Sorry if I do. Okay. All right, I think I got him. All right, got a lot of 24s. Good. I see Anthony and Peggy and June and Cheryl. Okay, thank you so much. That helps me understand where you're at. All right, so here's what it looks like right now looking down. And you can see we've got the quiet weather right here, our little oasis into wave country. And then you've got the snow breaking out to the west and back here into the Ozarks. This is the upper level low that has got a definite spin to it. Springfield, Missouri. In fact, do you guys want to see what it looks like in Springfield, Missouri right now? Let me show you. I have a live feed of what it looks like where the snow is coming down right in through here into Missouri. All right, let's switch it over. There you go. That is Springfield, Missouri right now, where the snow continues to fall. You can see it's mainly slushy. I mean, Missouri is fairly, they're good at handling the snow. They're pros. But it's fairly slushy out there at the moment. And you've got decent-sized flakes have been coming down. Most of the morning, I've been noticing that. I'm not sure on snow total there. I would say it's about 3 inches of snow that has fallen there based on what I'm looking at on that image into Springfield. But there you go. Poor visibility, just kind of a sloppy mess there. And then we're getting into the daytime period too. So this is impressive. But they also are a little bit of the Ozarks is not too far away into their territory though. So that is helping out. But this is the kind of look that some of you will indeed see as we head into later on for tonight. All right, the nighttime though, you may see some of that look and the result when the sun comes up in the morning, but I'm telling you, it's going to melt fast. But this is not the only feature. Let me go back to that. We actually have two different systems here. There's a surface low and your upper low that is moving through. So here's the upper low that is moving in. Here comes your surface low, which is actually not overly visible at the moment. It just is basically disconnected, if you will. They're not talking to each other yet, but that is about to soon happen. And you will then see the radar light up with rain in this area around Memphis, northern Mississippi, and northwest Alabama. That rain will then surge because the whole thing's moving east at the same time it's trying to organize. It's getting pushed. Somebody behind it is kind of pushing it along there. So as it's getting pushed, it will have more of an eastern turn to it, but eventually it's going to send the moisture northbound right into Kentucky as it gets that eastern kick. And it's really the eastern kick from that upper low that's helping all this take place. The problem I see is that why this is shifting so much is that once it gets itself organized and the low emerges out of Tennessee, it emerges out in this direction into southeast Kentucky, and then it's already wanting, because of the way the mountains work, and I'm going to get into deep of a talk here, but because of the what we call a transfer of low pressures that do this anytime you get closer to a body of water, and this one's going to do a transfer over to a new low that'll take over for the mid-Atlantic area and northeast and try to give a wallop of snow for maybe New York as we head into later on tomorrow. As that process happens, though, it is pulling away at our low pressure fast enough to where duration is going to be limited on how long it's here, and the idea that it doesn't have time to go more north. It's getting such a kick to the east so quick that it really just doesn't have a chance to get much of a northern piece to it. There will be an angle, I think, to its track. I didn't draw that right. There will be a little bit of an angle to it, if you will, on its track there before it does head east. But still, that's been the situation I've noticed, is that wobbling. And the thing is, it hasn't really technically connected yet. So that's the challenge here. Even the next 12 hours, I think that snow band idea is going to keep fluctuating here soon because they're still trying to organize. So the models can only do so well. But normally we wouldn't worry about or sweat about a 30 mile, 30, 40 mile shift in a track. But in this case, 30 or 40 miles makes a difference in whether, especially Louisville's involved or not. Makes a difference if Shepherdsville is involved or not. Indiana, likely not involved at all, the way it's looking. Don't be mad at me, Indiana, but that's the way it's looking now. All right, so let's get to the alerts as they stand now. We have the winter storm warning in the higher elevations there of the Ozarks, not too shocking. And then we have the winter weather advisory that is out all the way through the Ohio River Valley. And then you got the winter storm warnings already out for the transfer of the low when it redevelops for New York City area. So you see that pink there. Well, what about this? Well, our advisory came out yesterday for I-64 corridor, basically, if you count it as north and south. So our far southern not included, far northern not included. And this kicks in at 7 o'clock tonight. They did not want to adjust it this morning, even though they saw the shifting that's going on. They just want to see if there's a stabilization to that. Again, you have to look at it as models have this kind of a range, kind of like a pendulum, where you end up with different solutions. And then as you get closer in time, that pendulum slows down and begins to narrow down on one particular area. And then in the final 6-hour window, especially, it begins to just lock on. All right. So we're past the wide swings at this point. We're now starting to get to the point where we're seeing the needle slow down and trying to lock on, but it's not completely stopped yet, even this close to the event, which is what is a little more on the frustrating side for us because we're trying to make sure that we give you all the information we can, but you got to keep in mind it's still going to keep adjusting until that needle does stop, and that may take until the very last minute tonight. Wait, that's way fun. Love it. So the advisories that are out. Okay, so my gut feeling now, and I'm not with the Weather Service, this is their call, is that they will likely add most of Southern Kentucky and South Central Kentucky here. They will add you guys in. So it's a Green, Taylor, and Adair. You're not in it yet. I got a feeling you will be. I think you'll be added. I got a feeling our Indiana counties, at least one roll of them will be removed out of it. Even back to Evansville, probably removed. Louisville, I don't know. I don't know if Louisville will be included because there is a risk for this to wobble back north. Why would it do that? Well, as that centerpiece that's sort of a blank area now hasn't connected, as that develops this evening, it hasn't developed yet. That's the challenge here. As it develops, though, and moves, it does have a moisture surge initially right into central Kentucky to near the river, and then we see the pivoting go on and heads east. Still some debate as it does that surge up to the river, whether or not we would have some higher rates to maybe try to allow for a cooling effect and we get rain going to snow all the way up to the river itself. Not a lot of support for it compared to what we had even 12 hours ago, but I still think that's the caution thing that is holding back a lot of folks and moving a lot of things around here. But I think we may have an update on this. I don't think we will for midday, if I had to guess. I think we'll get an update on this probably for the 2 to 3 o'clock hour today. So stay tuned to social media and we'll keep you updated on that. But my gut feeling, there will be a switch. There is a potential, I'm going to show you on amounts, that there could be some cases where a winter storm warning would fit the narrative here. And right now, I think it's too isolated for them to draw that from the Weather Service, but it wouldn't surprise me that as the snow is ongoing, at that point they can have a better outline based on the radar, and they can upgrade a few counties to a winter storm warning. That is possible. I've seen it happen before. I don't know if it's going to be issued in advance or not or during the event, but just don't be surprised. And the threshold for that is right around 4 inches. All right. So that's what I think the advisory list may do. It'll shift and kind of tilt a little for later on today. Louisville, I just don't know what will happen as far as being included yet or not. So let me show you a couple of models. One way we can look at the heavy snowfall potential is by looking at just at temperature only. Remember, this is a dynamic cooling event that we're talking about that will move in. So by looking at temperature, 36 or lower is what we're looking for here. 36 or lower in the area where we know rain will be falling in this area. And that will tell us more than likely where we've seen the thumping of snow that has taken place. As we get to 4:30 this afternoon, we're not seeing that yet. We get a little later. All right, here we are at 9 o'clock. Okay, 9 o'clock, now we're starting to see a drop right around Munfordville, even a drop here into Southern Kentucky. Again, 45 in Louisville, but you got 39 in Marion County. It's 9 o'clock at night. Advance this a little more. Now you're starting to see a little cooler pocket that is showing up where not all the numbers are placed there, but you can definitely tell with that lighter gray, that's a cooler pocket, and that continues to pull the numbers down. This is the HER model, by the way, that's updating every hour with data. So this is where it thinks the heaviest of the snow band will be. Frankfort, Lexington area, Richmond, Kentucky, maybe Somerset, and perhaps the eastern side of Marion, Washington, and Taylor County, maybe Adair. So that's the spot the HER model likes. Seeing a 40 here at 12 midnight on this model run for Louisville tells me that's rain. If anything's even falling, it's rain. And nothing's going to be falling in Indiana out of this wave. So it's more than likely just a skimming our southern counties and into Lexington. If you go by the HER model, but that's one way we can look at it. Let me show you now and plot the actual radar onto this. And you can see we got the rain moving in this afternoon. There you go. You get the heavier rain. Now the model's like, okay, I'm going to put pink everywhere. Because at this point, the model knows that it's raining hard enough that there's got to be something else going on here because it can tell that there's cold air just above our layers that we have here at the surface to allow for the snowflake to make it to the ground level. So now it knows this is transitioning to a snow event, and all the areas are listed in pink. That will begin. So Lexington, Lebanon, Kentucky, Campbellsville, E-Town's close, but you're 41. You're close. and Campbellsville's at 34. And as I advance this, you'll see it. Boom, there it goes to the burst of snow. And I'm talking just like you saw there into Springfield, those big flakes coming down, even some thunder snow possible. I do see the possibility to get some lightning in some of this. Wouldn't that be wild? But our southern counties, you're south of the parkways right now, that's the spot you really would like to want to be at as it moves on by. Then you get into Louisville, and again, we're just not in the heavier rainfall rate. We've got the green showing up, which is a lighter rain. You got a heavier rainfall to get that colder air down, lower layers. Otherwise, we're stuck. And the raindrop or the snowflake will melt. All right. So that's the trend on the HER as it moves on by. And this is all done. And again, I'm not worried about slick spots as I was earlier today because I'm not seeing a big enough drop here on temperature anymore. I was seeing mid-20s at the start of the weekend for this event for Tuesday morning. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing this barely at 32, and Louisville may not even get to that point. So any slick spots are going to be limited to just where it snowed, and that's likely about it. And as I mentioned, the sun's going to come out Tuesday, and we're back in the 50s. Here's another model. This is our in-house model. Here we go with the rain surge. Again, it moves straight into Kentucky as it forms this afternoon. All right, it continues to stay in that zone once it moves up, again, near the river, but doesn't have a chance to go further than that. And then there's a pivoting that goes on with the low pressure, a spin. As it pivots, that's where you're going to see a lot of that yellow and orange. Now that we're getting past sunset, we'll begin to change over to snowfall. But it's moving fast. It just dumps the snowfall in Tennessee and Kentucky, and then it's on its way out of town. And goodbye. See you later. And then we're back to 50 degrees again for the next day. Okay, is the last thing I was going to show you before I get the snowfall. Okay, any questions I can ask on that part as far as how it's all set up? If you're going to get, I'm going to get to amounts in a second. And Jacob, I saw your question. I'll get to you as well. We'll get the force field around it. We never get snow. We get snow. We get snow. We just don't brag about it to our friends and neighbors, but we get snow. This year's been tough. I mean, past few years have been tough, but I'm telling you guys, this is the kind of weather pattern, though, that you got to deal with. If you want the big snow like that, the heavy, wet snow that can pile on 1 to 2 inches an hour, lightning and thunder, get thunder snow out of it, you've got to have warm air. Got to have the warm air. But you see the challenge with that when you get warmer air involved is you got to deal with this mess. But it's a lot easier with Arctic air to know where it's going to snow. We just plot where the moisture is and like, there's the path. It's going to snow here. A lot easier with a very cold setup. But when you have a different ball game, especially at the ground level versus above, then you end up with a different storyline. But that's how you get your fun stuff, though, that you probably are used to seeing as a kid coming through. So I understand your pain. Okay, let's show you then the snow map. Okay, so here's where we're at. I'll let y'all take this in, and I'll explain. Know where you are on the map. I did have a slight shift from this morning on placement, a little more south. I'm trying to aim toward the idea of the jump up to add moisture in Kentucky, and then the curl of the upper low moving in to allow for the dynamic cooling, and you get your snowfall. Now, what is up for debate is that we may be able to add some spots that could be in a 4 to 6 inch snow band somewhere in that zone there where we see those purples that show up and we get dynamic cooling, and the rates are indeed 2 inches per hour. If we were to see that rate, I think then we can easily get several inches of snow, and you could get up to 6. That's possible. Up to 6 is what I'm saying. Not everyone getting 6, but up to is possible. And the Weather Service would have to make a last minute call on that when it happens and go winter storm warning. But just letting you guys know that if you're around Taylor, Marion, Washington, and Dare, and having your friends east, just let them know that that's possible. All right. Now it is moving fast, so that may cut down on that risk, but I do think you can't rule it out. You can't rule it out there. I just can't plot it because it's too hard to plot where it'll be at, especially when it's wobbling around. It's like trying to put the collar on your dog when you take them out walking, and they won't sit still to allow you to put the collar on. I always relate things to animals, but that's how it feels. Like I'm trying to put it on the map, but they won't stay still. Snow lines keep shifting. So anyway, so we'll work on this today, but that's a general idea. Yeah, I know. What you're also looking at is the lack of blue that we have into Louisville. I think it's going to be tough. We may get moisture in here, and we may go to mix to snow. Absolutely, but it may not be a hard enough rate to really overcome the warm ground at that point. So you got to get to snow, step one. Secondly, you got to snow hard enough to overcome the warm ground. So it's a 1-2 package deal. So if you only get to step one, it melts on contact. It's nothing. You get to step two, boom, there you go. You get it in the blue. You don't get either one, then you're not on the map at all. All right. So we'll see if we see more shifting on this. It is certainly possible. There's more midday data coming in. I would be surprised, though, if it's anything dramatic north, because right now this has been a good settling point. And right now, based on where everything is on the map, it kind of makes sense. I don't know how much further north this thing's going to be able to go. That push north is the only thing that's kind of bothering me in the back of my head right now, but we'll see on that. All right, is everyone good on this setup there? If so, type 67 if you're good. Jacob, you're traveling at, Jacob, what'd you say? Litchfield to Lexington. I can't remember if you said it's Lexington to Litchfield or Litchfield to Lexington. Your comment is way up there, so I'm not going to be able to find you in time. So if you're still watching, let me know, and I will come back around to it here in just a second. Certainly, if you are traveling on the parkways, be careful. I would say anytime after the 9-10 o'clock window, be careful, because there will be some potential for some very heavy snow rates, especially when you travel east of Grayson County and get toward Nelson. You got to be wary there where that rate could be. And again, these lines are being drawn by a lot of us here and by models and stuff. So this is not the reality that may end up being the case. So there is some wiggle room, and that may certainly put one or two of the bands there over your travel. All right, Jacob, I see you're Lexington to Litchfield. Okay. Well, you're leaving at a time when it may not even be to Lexington, but by the time you get past, say, Nelson County, you will likely be driving into it. Here's the thing. At the beginning stages of this, a lot of this will be slush on the roads. I'm sure road crews will be out. If we run into the scenario, they'll have to plow, certainly, and add salt. Salt's going to work excellent in this environment, and the plowing will be effective as well. So the road crews will be out, but just take it slow. If you start seeing the snow hard enough, reduce your speed. Watch out, because the slush, when it first starts forming, it's a little hard to see because it's a slush, but it's a melting slush. It takes until the snow accumulates on top of the slush and makes it white. Then you then start to see what's happening on the roads. But the first stages of that, it's a bit slick. So just reduce your speed there. I don't see anything that's going to shut the roads down. You should be traveling enough time to get past that, but just be aware of the outlook there, and just be careful. If you're able to leave earlier, I would, just so you just don't have to worry about it at all as a stress. Because trust me, I stress out too about that stuff. 10 Central, 11 o'clock. Okay. Yeah, 11 Eastern. Yeah, if you're heading out at that point, again, you may be lucky to where it hasn't really fully started yet in Lexington, but once you get further west, you should drive right into it. So just be careful, all right? And you'll come out the other side fairly quick, actually, by the time you get to Grayson County. It will likely be ending at that point. So, again, be careful. Everyone be careful out there later tonight if you're working second shift in Southern Kentucky, especially. For those in Louisville, again, I don't want to be a wish casting here. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to say, oh, don't give up. We could still get a foot of snow. I'm not going to say that as much as I want to. It's got a lot of jogging to do northbound to convince me right now. And if it did, it would make me even more leery that it's going to bounce right back down to the south. So it's really odd to be this close to the event and still have this much waffling going on. But at the same time, you're dealing with a very narrow band here. All right. This is not a big system for the Ohio Valley. No one's going to be talking about us. They're talking about what's happening in Missouri. They're talking about New York in a big way on all the national networks. They're not worried about Kentucky. So we got to look out for you guys, because no one else is watching out for you all. Right. So we're watching out for you. It is a narrow band, and that's why it's going to be a very sensitive forecast on impacts. All right. Real quickly, I want to mention we do have the other wave for later this week, Friday night and Saturday. The issue here is it's got to slow down. If it can slow down, it zips in fast. It's one to approach a little more toward Oklahoma, which would slow it down. But if it dives in more north through Iowa into Illinois, it will go too fast. But if we can slow down and dig, it can become a little more of a system that we'll need to watch for Friday night and Saturday. Right now, everything looks fast. We'll see. Just pointing out why it's on the board, and why they need to be watched. After that, there is a lot of debate, of course, of how things will go for the rest of the month into March, because we are still getting these cold attacks, but they're impacting Canada and only grazing parts of the Northeast. We haven't seen one really fully dig all the way in yet, right? It's still showing signs of doing that, but it's also showing signs that the flow coming in from California, typical El Nino flow, is going to really try to fight this. It's going to try to fight it hard and try to keep throwing us into the 50s, even some 60s. Wouldn't surprise me. It's going to keep trying to throw warm air at us, while at the same time, these cold air attacks from the Northeast will keep taking place, and that will likely continue into March. So that's going to just lead to more battles of bigger storms at times. And some will have heavy rain, some will have severe weather, and some will have snowfall. But we're not going to be able to see all those finer details this far out. All we can tell you, the players are on the field, and we'll have to let the modeling settle it out from there. All right. That's it. I got to run. I appreciate y'all as always. Stay tuned. I am going to work on this midday map. So watch midday today. I'll let you know if there's any changes to it. Otherwise, Kevin and Ryan will have you guys covered starting at 3 o'clock today. And at that point, we'll be entering into our alert day mode for especially our Kentucky counties for this evening. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. And again, keep checking back in on that forecast.